Those who never kept up with Lori Vallow, you're in luck because I've done all the homework to get you up to speed so you don't have to read about this lunatic yourself. Here's the deal. Lori Vallow and her fourth husband, Charles Vallow, got divorced in February of 2019. July 2019, Lori's brother, Alex, shot Charles dead. Claims self-defense. Sure, Jan. A few months later, Alex himself dies of natural causes, so he's never charged with anything. September 2019, Lori moves her and her kids to Rexburg, Idaho to be with this creep, Chad Daybell. 1 month later, Chad's ex-wife, Tammy, dies, and it was ruled as a heart attack. 2 weeks after that, Chad and Lori get married in Hawaii. December 2019, police are notified that Lori's kids haven't been seen since September. 17-year-old Tylee Ryan was last seen on September 8, 2019, in Yellowstone with Lori, JJ, and Alex, her brother. 7-year-old JJ Vallow was last seen on September 23, 2019. They do a welfare check, and Lori gives some bullshit about them being out of town. Details of this welfare check were given this week, so we'll get there. They moved to Hawaii, and she tells people that she had a daughter named Tylee who died in 2017, and they had no other children. January 2020, police ordered Lori to produce her children within 5 days. She did not comply and was arrested a month later. After all this shit, police are like, let's exhume Chad's ex-wife's body because these people are lunatics. And it turns out Tammy actually died from asphyxiation, not a heart attack. June 9, 2020, a search warrant is done at Chad Daybell's property and 2 bodies were discovered, quickly determined to be Tylee and JJ. JJ was found in a black plastic bag and Tylee was dismembered and burned. How the hell you do that to your children? I don't know. Chad and Lori are both charged with murder of the 2 kids and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and the death of Tammy. Fast forward to this month, Lori's trial begins in Boise, and these people are insane. Cameras aren't allowed in the courtroom. Better not be the case come June. An overview of what's come out during the trial will be in part 2. The trial started earlier this month. Prosecutors say that Lori and Chad were focused on the end times and doomsday scenario. They read texts between the couple about Tammy being in limbo and she's being possessed by a spirit named Viola. Vallow's friend Melanie Gibbs recalls one time in 2020 where Tylee refused to babysit JJ and she declared them both as turning into zombies. In Chad and Lori's eyes, zombies are controlled by dark spirits and the host body can only be released through physical death. Week 2 of the trial focuses on pages of financial records proving Lori took her children's Social Security benefits after they died. It was also revealed that in November 2019, Chad Daybell sent an email to a realtor in Hawaii confirming that he and his new wife were moving there and said that they had no kids or pets. What is your defense going to be for this? They showed that Tammy's life insurance policy was increased 1 month before she died. On Thursday, 8 people testified. David Warwick, Melanie Gibbs' husband, was one of them, and he said that he and his wife stayed with Lori on September 23, 2019, while her daughter was, quote, visiting college nearby. Lori's brother Alex walked in with JJ asleep on his shoulder, and he put him to bed. This was the very last sighting of JJ alive. In the middle of the night, David had a terrible nightmare that resulted in him screaming in his sleep, and it woke up Melanie, who went to Lori and Chad's room, and no one was in the house. The next morning, they asked where JJ was, and Lori said he was acting out, so she had her brother come get him. In the middle of the night. Police also testified that during their welfare check in early November, Lori said JJ was in Arizona with Melanie Gibbs. They asked her to call Melanie so they can talk to JJ, and Lori said she would, but they're in a movie. Then she later asked Melanie to lie about JJ's whereabouts. And that's pretty much what it's been so far, all of Lori's inconsistencies. Why even plead not guilty? What other way could this possibly go? Cannot wait for that defense.
Lawyers arguing today that the testimony was so difficult, they asked if she could leave the courtroom.
By the police.
Lori and her new husband
had gotten away from him, and he had joined.
I want you to hear in her own words how she talked about her third husband, Joseph Ryan. Have a listen.
I had been married to someone who was very awful, who had children, and I had divorced him and gotten away from him, and he had joined the church. He spoke in state conference. Everyone thought he was wonderful. He was very good showman of all those things, and after we were divorced, he told everybody that I was this lying, crazy Mormon, and got up in court and said all these horrible things about me, and turned it around to where the judges believed him instead of me. And he was constantly trying to get custody of my 3-year-old daughter and just to rub it in my face. And I went through a lot of years of this kind of hard stuff. And I was going to murder him. I was going to kill him, like the scriptures say, like Nephi killed him, just to stop the pain and to stop him coming after me and to stop him coming after my children. And I just felt I couldn't take it anymore. And I would go through the scriptures and find all the things, like if he comes against you once, if he comes against you twice, if he comes against you 3 times, then you can kill him. It says it in the scriptures in the Book of Mormon. I was like, there it is, there's my answer. I don't want to do anything that's wrong. I did not have a murderous heart. I just wanted to stop the bleeding and stop the pain.
And like I said, she doesn't know the recording is happening, so take a listen.
I am sweet. I am a sweet person. She is sweet. Don't ask my husband.
Lori and her new husband, Chad Daybell, may have admitted one of the kids was dead months before police or anyone knew they had been murdered. Morgan Lowe's in studio. It's a big bomb to drop. How did they uncover this admission?
This came from Chad Daybell's neighbors, a husband and wife who testified today that when they first met Lori, Chad and Lori told them her daughter had recently died. This was in October of 2019, right after Chad's wife died. So the neighbors said they were shocked that Chad already had a new girlfriend. They testified that Lori was telling them about her past when Chad told them Lori's daughter had just passed away. They had no idea that daughter, Tylee, and her brother, JJ, were already dead, murdered, in fact. Later, when the children were reported missing and police and media began looking for them, one of the neighbors, Alice Gilbert, said she confronted Chad.
I asked them, where are the kids, Chad, and doesn't Tylee want a life, a job, a car, a boyfriend? And he said she didn't like people and she didn't like me.
And what struck you about those statements?
Because he said didn't.
He used the past tense?
He used the past tense.
Prosecutors will use this to show Lori and Chad knew the kids were dead because they took part in the children's murders. Lori Vallow is charged with the murders of her 2 children and conspiracy to commit murder in the case of Tammy Daybell. Chad Daybell faces similar charges when he goes to trial either later this year or early next year.
Lori.
Doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow is finally on trial. If you've had a chance yet to watch Sins of Our Mother on Netflix, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. So Vallow, who's 49, is being charged with 2 counts of murder, one for her 7-year-old son JJ and the other for her 16-year-old daughter Tylee. She's also being charged with conspiracy to murder for her husband Chad Daybell's first wife Tammy. So I'm going to be following along the court case of Lori while she's in trial, but I want to give you a little history on exactly why she's in trial and what this woman's done. So JJ and Tylee actually went missing and vanished in September of 2019, and Lori, their mother, refused to reveal their whereabouts to anyone, including authorities, for months. Just 1 month after the disappearance of the kids, Tammy Daybell, which was Chad Daybell's first wife, died suddenly, and she was only 49 years old. Soon after, Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow took off to Hawaii to get married. So this is Chad Daybell and this is Lori Vallow, and these two actually met in October of 2018 when they were both still married and they were at a religious conference. So basically from the moment these two met, there was a connection, and it's believed that they were together from that moment. The two of them had some pretty strong cult beliefs, including a rating system where they would rate the people around them from light to dark based on their spirit energy. And it even developed into believing that some people were zombies and they had to be killed and their body destroyed. Unfortunately, these two were able to recruit quite a few friends and even family members into this cult, including Lori's brother Alex, who is actually responsible for the death of Lori's first husband, Charles, and Lori is facing charges as well for the murder of Charles in Arizona. So these two, Lori and Chad, did get married on a beach in Hawaii soon after and probably thought they got away with things. But June of 2020, Authorities did a search of Chad Daybell's property and sadly found the bodies of Tylee and JJ, Lori's 2 children. The court proceedings have been delayed a few years due to a couple of factors, one being the pandemic and 2 being that Lori was actually admitted to a mental facility. So the trial for Lori Vallow has begun. It's a few days into it now. Lots of information has been revealed, including the cause of Chad Daybell's wife's murder. I'm going to be covering this. If you're interested and want to follow along, hit the follow button and I'll be posting more each day. Before I start covering the trial of Lori Vallow, who is the doomsday cult mom, I wanted to get into basically a timeline of how things went down. So let's start with these two. So this is Chad Daybell. This is his first wife, Tammy. They got married in 1990 and they had 5 children together. This is Charles and Lori Vallow. So they got married in 2006 and Lori brought in with her 2 children, Colby and Tylee. And in 2014, the 2 of them decided to adopt JJ. And JJ was Charles's sister's grandson. So Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow met at a religious conference that they both attended in 2018. So Lori had been getting very involved in her church and some of the extreme religious views that she had, including the doomsday theory, and to the point where Charles was actually pleading with police in a body cam footage that was from January 19th, asking the police to get her mental help. In February of 2019, Charles actually filed for divorce. He claimed that Lori believed she was God and preparing for the second coming of Christ. He also said that he felt that she would kill him if he got in her way. Now, unfortunately, the divorce proceedings did stall because he did feel he wanted to work it out again. So in June of 2019, Brandon and Lori's niece, Melanie, ended up getting divorced, and Brandon said that Melanie was part of the cult. So this is Alex Cox, and Alex is Lori's brother. And in July of 2019, Alex actually shot and killed Lori's ex-husband, Charles Vallow. He does claim that it was self-defense and that he was hit with a bat, and so he fired. At the end of August, they all packed up and moved to Idaho. So Alex, Lori, Tylee, JJ, and even Lori's niece, Melanie. This is believed to be the last time anyone saw Tylee alive. So this was a trip to Yellowstone that Alex, Lori, Tylee, and JJ took on September 8th, 2019. Also on September 8th of 2019, Chad Daybell and Tammy applied for an application to increase Tammy's life insurance. On September 9th of 2019, they actually have phone records that show that Alex was on Chad Daybell's property near where Tylee's remains were found. The other thing that also happened on this day was Chad had texted his wife Tammy saying that he had shot a large raccoon on the property and buried the raccoon in their pet cemetery in the backyard. Around this time, Lori had actually registered JJ for school. He only attended for about 3 weeks and she pulled him back out saying he was going to be homeschooled, and she never did register Tylee in any school at that time. On October 1st, Lori rents a storage unit where she, Alex, and Chad are seen multiple times going to and from this unit. Check out part 2 for the continuation. This is part 2 of a timeline for Lori Vallow, the doomsday cult mom. So as I said in part 1, this is Lori's niece, Melanie, and this is her ex-husband, Brandon. So on October 2nd, Brandon actually calls 911. As he's driving onto his road, he notices a Jeep parked on the side, and he happens to look over and sees a gun poke out the window with a silencer on it. Before he can even react, it shoots, shatters his window. He speeds up, goes home, and calls 911. Luckily, Brandon didn't notice the license plate, and it turns out that the Jeep was actually registered to then already deceased Charles Vallow. Also on October 2nd, Lori Vallow was found to have been on Amazon, and she actually ordered wedding rings for her and Chad. 1 week later, on October 9th, Chad Daybell's first wife, Tammy, actually calls 911. She claims that she was in her driveway and someone shot at her with a paint gun. It turns out in court documents that it was a real weapon, and court documents state that it was actually Lori's brother, Alex, who did it. Sadly, 10 days later, on October 19th, Chad calls 911 saying that Tammy has died in her sleep. And just 2 weeks later, this happens. Lori and Chad actually fly to Hawaii and get married. And then 2 weeks later, this happens. On November 5th, Lori and Chad fly to Hawaii and they get married on the beach. It's been reported that they were telling people while they were there that they have no children. On November 26th, the police are called by JJ's grandparents, Larry and Kay, and the police actually do a welfare check where Lori tells them that JJ is with a friend of hers in Arizona named Melanie Gibb. The police follow up with this, and of course he was not there. So on November 27th, police actually issued a search warrant for Chad and Lori's home. On December 1st, these two board a plane and head to Hawaii. However, on December 6th, Lori's friend Melanie Gibb called the police to let them know that Lori had actually called her and asked her to lie to them about the whereabouts of JJ and to say that he was actually with her when he wasn't. Tammy's death had originally been labeled as natural causes, but on December 11th, it was relabeled as suspicious. Her body was exhumed and an autopsy was performed, but the results were not revealed. On December 12th, Lori's brother Alex dies at the age of 51. He did tell his wife just days before if anything happened to him that he had money hidden and showed her where it was. On December 20th, Tylee and JJ are officially announced as missing, and they do say it could be linked to the death of Tammy. The next day, we have Lori and Chad being named as suspects in the case. Check out part 3. This is part 3 of a timeline about Lori Vallow, who is the doomsday cult mom. We just finished off in part 2 with the police announcing JJ and Tylee as missing, and the police actually stated that the cooperation or lack of cooperation from Lori and Chad was absolutely astonishing. On January 3rd, the police did a search of Chad Daybell's home where they took away 43 items, including computers, cell phones, and tons of documents. On January 25th, the police served Lori with a notice saying she has to produce the children within 5 days. Of course, January 30th comes, Lori does not produce the children, so she misses the deadline. On February 20th, Lori is finally arrested, and on March 5th, she's extradited to Idaho. On June 9th of 2021, the police issued a search warrant of Chad Daybell's property, where they did eventually find the human remains of JJ and Tylee. Soon after, they took Chad into custody, and on August 21st, he pled not guilty. On May 24th, 2021, a grand jury indicts Lori and Chad on multiple felony counts, including first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. On June 8th, Lori was deemed unfit by a psychologist and was actually committed to a mental hospital, and Chad pled not guilty. On June 24th, a grand jury in Arizona indicts Lori for conspiracy to commit murder against her ex-husband, Charles. On April 11th of 2022, Lori is now deemed fit for trial, and soon after, on the 19th of April, she pleads not guilty to all charges. On May 2nd of 2022, the prosecutors announced that they will pursue the death penalty and that they're going to try Lori and Chad together in one trial. 2 weeks later, Lori files a petition to have no cameras in the courtroom, which of course was granted, and that's why we are not able to watch the court and only listen to it. So Lori and Chad were supposed to be in trial in January of 2023, but October 6th, Lori was again deemed unfit for court. Lori was deemed fit for trial again about a month later, but it was too late for a January court session, so it was rescheduled to start April 3rd of 2023. On March 2nd, 2023, the judge actually announced that he was going to sever the case and that each would have their own trial and that the death penalty was now off the table. And he did say that it was due to new evidence being found with DNA testing. So that pretty much sums up the timeline for Lori Vallow. So court has started. It began on April 3rd of this year. The first 5 days was jury selection and day 6 was opening statements. I'm going to be following along with the trial and posting updates. If you want to follow along, hit the follow button.